there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and today I'm going to be doing my weekly reading wrap up from the 1st to the 7th of April. I read a total of 8 books this week. I read 4 romance, 3 mystery thrillers, and 1 YA, and I think I read 2 or 3 arcs, so for me that is pretty good. I will link all of the books down below. I'd love to hear if you guys have read them and what you guys think of them, and let's just get right into it. The first book that I read is Brightside by Kim Holden. This has been on my TBR for years and it is on Kindle Unlimited now, so I decided to just pick it up. This is a very gut-wrenching emotional romance read. It is about a college student named Kate. I think she took a gap year after high school and she's from San Diego. And now that her life isn't really holding her back, she's moving to Minnesota and she's going to college there. And her nickname is Brightside because she's always really positive no matter what negative things are going on in her life. And she's had a lot of negative things happen to her. So she's always pretty optimistic, and her best friend, I think his name is Gus, he gave her that nickname. And the night before she went to Minnesota, something happened between her and Gus and it kind of complicates their lifetime friendship. So she goes to Minnesota and she makes friends with like everyone at her college while she's kind of dealing with her own demons from back home. And she meets a guy in a coffee shop. His name is Keller, and it is like lust at first sight, and they both are attracted to each other. And he's pretty mysterious but charming, and he has some demons from his past as well. And it is their romance, and it is super heart-wrenching and very emotional. It had me crying a lot, but it is really good, and I know there's a second one in the series, so I look forward to reading that as well, and I highly recommend this one. I gave it 4.5 stars. The second book that I read is The Hiding Place by CJ Tutor. I actually just made a video talking about both of CJ Tutor's books, so I will link that down below once I upload it. It's scheduled to upload this week. And this is another suspense thriller novel from CJ Tutor, as her first one, The Chalk Man, was. And this one is about another small town, and the main character's name is Joe Thorne. And he's been away from this small town for 25 years, ever since I believe he was 15. And now he's 40 and he has returned to this town. And right when he returns, the town is up in arms because this young mother named Julia, who's a teacher, she committed suicide and killed her son Ben, who I believe is in like middle school or elementary school. And her job position is now open at the school, and Joe Thorne takes her teaching position and rents her cottage, which a lot of people find really creepy, that he's really interested in their deaths and they are not welcoming him back home, particularly people that he knew from his childhood. So you're going back and forth learning about 25 years ago as well as currently, and seeing the connections between the deaths of Julia and Ben, as well as what happened in Joe's life 25 years ago. And I found this to be good, but it was definitely not as good as The Chalk Man. I felt it was very similar to The Chalk Man in the small town vibe, but the main characters were both similar kind of guys with a lot of problems. And to me, they just were very reminiscent of each other, but it was still really good, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. And the next book that I read is What He Never Knew by Candy Steiner. This is the 3rd book in the What He Doesn't Know series. It was originally supposed to be a duet about a married woman named Charlie, who her husband's name is Cameron, and she starts falling for someone from her past named Reese. And it is like a love triangle, and the first 2 books is her making the decision of who she's going to choose. And then people really liked both men in the story, and so when she made her choice, they asked Candy to make a story that was about the man that she didn't choose, and that is What He Never Knew. Probably fast forward a minute if you haven't read this series before, just so I don't spoil it for you. So this one is about Reese because Charlie did not pick Reese, and Reese is a piano teacher now. And the main woman in the story is named Sarah. She was going to music college, but something happened to her right before her graduation, and she ended up leaving, and she moved to her uncle's town of Mount Lebanon, and he got a gig so she could be taught by Reese because she has a piano injury, and he's going to help her with her piano skills and getting over that injury. Well, they are 16 years apart, but they form a romance and it is about them. And this one, for me, it just did not work. Like the first two, it was okay, but it definitely wasn't my favorite, and I ended up giving this 3 stars. The next book that I have is an ARC, and it is called What She Saw by Wendy Clark. I believe this is Wendy Clark's first release, and this is like a mystery suspense kind of book, and it is about a mother named Leona, and she has a 15-year-old daughter named Beth, and they usually have a great relationship, but now that Beth is a teenager, I think it's kind of on the rocks. And Leona suddenly starts seeing someone she knows from her past in reflections and just out and about. She's just mentally seeing them, and the person's name is Rhea, and she's very angry at this person and kind of haunting her, and she gets panic attacks. So she seeks a therapist to help her tackle those memories, and she goes back to, I think it's over a decade before, when Rhea was in her life, and you start seeing what happened to Rhea and what happened to Leona. And then meanwhile, because Leona is so caught up in her own stuff, she's not really paying attention to what's happening to Beth. Beth likes to go sketch in the wild and like the wilderness, and she likes to sketch birds, and she meets an older man, and I think he's in like his 20s, and she lies and says she's older, and they form this relationship, and she's keeping it a secret from her parents. And the mom has no idea that her daughter is meeting with an older man and could be taking advantage of her. So you have these two storylines, and you're kind of curious how they're going to intersect. And I did really like this story. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I'd love to read more by Wendy Clark because it did keep me hooked for the majority of the book. And then the next book that I have is also an ARC, but the book actually came out, I believe, in February, but it was still available on NetGalley, so I ended up getting it. And it is called Missing Daughter by Rick Mofina. This was on my April TBR, and I was really happy that I got to it because I really enjoyed this. And it is about a married couple named Karen and Ryan. They live in Syracuse, New York. They have 2 kids, Tyler, who's 13, and Maddie, who is 12. And they go out to dinner, they come home, and the kids are asleep. The mom checks on them, and the next morning, Maddie is not in her room, and she's missing. So the first half of the book is basically them searching for her. The police believe someone snatched her from her room, but it could be someone she knows, who knows, it could be a stranger. There's a halfway house down the street, it could be a criminal. And then, so you're seeing that, and kind of the cracks in that family start to be revealed as the police dig into their life. And then the last about half, you see 4 years after the girl's disappearance, and that's when things really pick up and some crazy stuff happens. And I really enjoyed this story. I gave it about 3.75, 4 stars. It was not like a 3-star, but it was not quite a 4-star, so I gave it 3.75, but I really enjoyed it and I would highly recommend it. Next book that I read is The One You Fight For by Ronnie Lauren. This is the 3rd book in the Ones Who Got Away series. It is a series following 4 different women who survived a high school shooting 14 years ago at Long Acre High School, and now each one is their romance. So this one follows Taryn, whose sister died in that school shooting, and ever since she's been trying to do prevention of school shootings. So she's a forensic psychologist and a professor in psychology, and she's been doing research on how to help kids before they become killers, and that is literally her life's work. And she sacrificed her dating life, her social life, and caused a lot of stress. And so her best friend decides that they need to go to a gym so she relieves stress, and her new trainer's name is Lucas, and he happens to be someone that she kind of already knows. And when they first meet, they have no idea that they already know each other. So Lucas, his real name is actually Shaw. He changed his name because his brother is the shooter from the Long Acre shooting incident, and he killed a lot of people, and he's been feeling guilt about his brother's actions ever since. And so he changed his name because people have been harassing him ever since. And he helped open this gym with his friend, and now he is training Taryn, and it is their romance. And of course, it's going to have some drama because of the situation. And this one was so good. I think it was my favorite in the series so far, and this one just had me so emotional, and I loved both the characters so much. I thought that Taryn was a strong and independent woman, and I thought Shaw, Lucas, he was very compassionate and had a good head on his shoulders, and I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Then the next book that I read is Hotshot Doc by R.S. Gray. I've never read anything by R.S. Gray before, but I've heard nothing but great things about their books, and this one I believe came out in December, so it's a newer one. And I've heard that R.S. Gray's books are like romantic comedies, and I would definitely agree with that. This one to me was a romantic comedy. And it is about a girl named Bailey who's in her mid-20s, and 6 years ago she took guardianship of sister Josie. And she was going to become a doctor, but because she had to take on responsibility of Josie, she gave up on it, and now she's a surgical assistant. Well, she's had a good thing going for the past few years with her doctor, and he's retiring, which sucks for her because she could be out of a job. And the only surgeon that has room for a new assistant is the resident asshole. His name is Dr. Russell, his name is Matt, and everyone thinks he's a jerk and he scares away all his surgical assistants. But Bailey really needs this job, so she decides to start working with Dr. Russell, and she definitely pushes back on him and doesn't take his crap, and it is their romance, and their banter is so witty, and I loved it. And I was surprised how much I really enjoyed this. It just put a smile on my face, and it was steamy, but also pretty charming, and I just sped through this and I loved it, and I can't wait to read more by R.S. Gray. And I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. And then the last book that I read is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McKeeston. I've never read anything by this author because I believe this is her first publication. I wasn't planning on reading this book, but I've heard so many things about it, especially from Chelsea Darling Reads. She's a big YA reader, and she's been raving about this book. Me personally, I don't read a ton of YA, but I just heard a lot of great things about this book, so I decided to request it from NetGalley, and I ended up getting it, so I decided to give it a try. And it follows the first son named Alex. He's 21 years old, and he lives in the White House. His mom is the president, and his older sister. And he's had this rivalry with one of the royals, Prince Henry, who's 23 years old. They've had this rivalry for years, and when Alex is in England for a royal wedding, they get into some scuffle, and they kind of have to save face. So they're forced to become friends and hang out together and have appearances together, and lo and behold, they become actual friends. And when they interact again, there's a romance, and Alex didn't even know that he was bisexual or questioning his sexuality, but as soon as he has a romance ensue with Henry, he realizes that he's definitely attracted to guys, and it is their love stories, and they have to keep it a secret. And it's basically told through some letters between each other. I think it's emails, and those are really cute. And both of them have to keep it a secret because Alex does not want to jeopardize his mom's re-election. And Henry is a royal, and the royals and the monarchs are very strict on what they expect of you. So it's really hard and stressful for him. And they basically have to decide if their love is worth putting all of that on the line. And it was really cute. I didn't love it as much as everyone else seems to, but I thought it was really cute. I definitely think it is YA. Even both of the characters are adults, because their maturity level to me was more of teenager age. The classification as a YA novel makes more sense to me just because they are a little bit on the young side. I guess it could be a little bit new adult because it is pretty steamy, but I think YA is pretty accurate. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I wanted to love it as much as everyone else did. And don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it. It's just I wasn't like going bananas for it. I thought it was really cute, and like I said, I gave it 4 stars. So those are all the books that I read this week. I will link them all down below, and I will see you guys on my next one. Bye.